And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Digital Dialogue series. My name is Tawana Bain. I am the founder of the Derby Diversity in Business Summit, as well as the founder of Jedi. And today we are talking about storytelling. We have some amazing guests that have put pen to paper because business cards will no longer do. Before we dive in, I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, Sharina Fox.
Hello, everyone. Of course, I'm Sharina Fox. I'm the co-host, but I'm also I work for Jedi. I'm a program director for a program called Just Boss Up. We do everything that it takes for these small businesses to go from kind of side hustling to becoming a complete legit business. So I love what I do, and I'm also all things diversity and inclusion.
Thank you, Sharina. All right, ladies, if you'll introduce yourself, we'll start with Dr. Michelle, then Dr. Howard, and then Cheryl Walker.
My name is Dr. Michelle Reed. I am a board-certified family physician, a certified personal trainer, and an author. Thank you very much for the invitation for today.
You're welcome. Oh, Dr. Howard, we think you're on mute.
I can go.
Oh, please.
My name is Cheryl Walker Robertson. I'm the Chief Protocol Officer for Protocol International. My business is all about enhancing the professional and business skills of my clients. And I'm so excited to be on the show today. Thank you for having me. And with my friends at that.
Welcome.
Okay, I think, can you hear me now?
I can.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dr. Larthenia Howard. I'm a book coach. I work with mainly baby boomer and Gen X women leaders to teach them how to increase visibility and influence with the creation of easy content.
Awesome. Well, ladies, welcome. I'm so excited to have you. Storytelling is a big thing. I mean, it can be the difference between getting a contract, getting a grant, or even just being invited in the room to speak. One of the conversations that I was having with our consultant, Deidre, as it relates to this topic, is that business cards it's not enough anymore. Some people ask the first thing when they ask if you want to speak, do they have a book? So talk with us a little bit about why you all decided to put pen to paper and even a little bit about your books and how that has changed the trajectory of your businesses.
Well, I'm super excited about being an author. Being an author, it really does add amazing credibility to that thing you are an expert at. It's also a way for people to understand who you are and what you're all about. And so I'm really excited about my book. And I want to thank both of your other guests today, Dr. Michelle Reed and I. We went through this process together. And Dr. Larthenia Howard, I would not even have a book if it were not for her. So it wasn't the easiest thing to do, but certainly having a community and a relationship with an expert like Dr. Larthenia Howard made writing my book that much easier. So it means a lot to be an author. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that. Yeah, I had an awesome experience with both of you. For me, I started the process because about maybe 10, 15 years ago, I was in the education system, and I was asked to be on a national panel of No Child Left Behind task force in Washington, D.C. And I found that when doing some of that work, I was having difficulty trying to convince some legislators about doing some reform to the education policies that they had at that time. So I came back to Florida and I decided I'm going to write a book to really create myself this platform of being an expert in this topic of language acquisition. And so I did. I created that book in 30 days, went back to Washington and was able to influence lawmakers to actually revise 2 of the laws that they had on the book at that time, using the book that was created in 30 days and using my expertise. And so I would say that storytelling, absolutely, especially like Cheryl said, when you're using your expertise and it's funneled in a particular way to, for influence, that you can definitely make a huge impact with a book.
Okay, before we move on to Dr. Michelle, 30 days, Dr. Howard? Listen, I'm just going to put it out here. It's taken me 8 years, and I finally just said, forget it. Turn it into a talk show. 30 days?
Yeah, and you know what? The average person, we say that the average, it takes the average author about 4 to 7 years to write a book. But I always say, with a proven system, you can do it in 31 days.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I'll jump in here because these two ladies that you have as your guests, I love them to pieces because I always wanted to write a book. And one of the reasons why is, as a doctor, I have a practice. I have 2 locations. We have about 15 to 20,000 patients, but I'm only touching those people. So when I go out to speaking engagements, and now that stuff is virtually, everyone has their computer. So when I mention the book, they're like, oh, Amazon? I'll go right there. And then they'll say, like, I bought the book. So thanks to Dr. Larthenia, we have the Fit Doc's Guide, Mentally Fit, Physically Strong. But I met Dr. Larthenia at Odyssey Network retreat, where Cheryl works very, very closely as an officer of that association. And that was like many years ago. And, I sat in Dr. Larthenia's class where she was talking about how you can write a book in 30 days. And I'm like, all I could see, because we were in a beach house, all I could see was the water behind. I was so distracted. And I was like, I will circle back and get in touch. And we actually did the book in less than a year. And that was between my busy schedule and her busy schedule. So I think, for more people, it does translate, because there was a question earlier about sales. It does generate more income. Now people are asking for an audio version, and then they want another book. So now it's just hooking back with Dr. Larthenia to get another book so we can get started, because people do love to read, but also we're finding out that people like to listen. And because we get tired of using our eyes, especially now with COVID, we're using our eyes so much, just focused on the Zoom. So that'll be the next thing. And of course, it's my calling card. You go to an event and everyone's like, oh, give me your business card. Half the times when you take somebody's business card, unless you put it in your phone, you never do anything with it. But when you give them a book, it goes on their bookshelf or their nightstand, and they take the time to read it. And that's like also the benefit of being an author, because you're further educating people. And for me, I'm educating more people outside of my office. And I've traveled to Curacao. I've traveled to Jamaica multiple times. And so this is an opportunity for me to share me with other people.
Okay, ladies, look, y'all have me feeling like a serious underachiever. Okay, I'm like,
I doubt that's true. I
know,
no.
all the other things down, and now it's like you got to publish a book, ma'am.
But you know what? It's not as bad as you think it is if you have the right team.
That's right.
Because you have everything up here. It's just a matter of translating it into the book.
So you tell me, okay, 8 years later, by the way. So for those of you that are tuning in, we are talking about using storytelling to grow your business. These women have put pen to paper. They are now authors. They have published their own books. And we are learning that you cannot get away with just a business card anymore. You have got to demonstrate you've got authorship. And so it can benefit your sales. It can benefit your brand. It can make or break whether or not you are in the room. And one of the women on here told us that she used a book that she wrote 30 days later, had changes with legislation. And I'm still like mind blown with this because, like I said, eight years later, which, by the way, I turned mine in what we're calling DigiPod Show. It's a new format of delivering content. And I'm sitting here recognizing because the team keeps saying, okay, so, but we are going to put this still in a book, right? And I'm like, why do we need a book? Like they can still pick it up and they can still listen. But as I'm sitting here in this chair, I'm realizing I need to add one more thing to my plate. To your point, Cynthia Lee made a comment here in just a moment that, tying it to sales and storytelling. So can you all give some examples, especially for those that are tuning in, that are sitting on the edge? They've got this idea in their mind. They clearly, many of them are going to probably be reaching out to Dr. Howard, trying to figure out how they can get their book done. And honey, you said 30 days, you have set the bar. They probably drive you crazy. But can you give some examples on how your book has dramatically impacted your bottom line?
Oh, I can definitely jump in front on that one. So Protocol International, we do a lot of training. And, before COVID, we traveled a lot. And so, I would just have a handful of my books. So whenever I did training, at the end of the training, everybody wanted a book. And then on the other hand, some people said, let me just buy a bunch of the books and give out to my ERG groups or to my executives or to my memberships. And I would say, well, if you buy a certain amount of books, then I would throw in the training as a part of the deal. So it does give you a little bit of leverage, different ways that you can play it so that you can increase your income, whether it's about the book or whether it's about your training.
And I was going to say, and then one of the other things is, especially me being a doctor, some people don't want to give you an honorarium. So part of my negotiation is, okay, so if you don't want to give me an honorarium, can you guarantee that X number of books can be sold? Can we sell 100 books at the event? And if 100 books are not sold, you will pick up whatever is rest.
Balance, that's good.
You have the book. But the thing is, you have to learn how to market yourself, because what it took to put the knowledge down into the book is worth more than they can ever get otherwise. So, and that's something that you have to remember, especially you, Tawana. You have vast experiences that need to be written down so you can share it with other people.
Yeah. And you also have to think about the different formats of books too, right? And so when you think about the knowledge that you have, Cheryl and what she does in the etiquette and protocol world, Dr. Michelle, what she does in the physical fitness and health world, and so many of us out here with expertise. When you look at, from a standpoint of income and expanding your business, if I can put information in a book and sell it for $15, right? If I can put that same information in a manual and break down some steps and systems that I have in a book, now we're talking hundreds of dollars. Same information, expand it. So depending on your audience and depending on what information you have, then you also consider the type of book that you want to write, because you can make way more money if you're doing it that way than if you're selling books for $15. I see you ladies over there smiling, so we're going to put some manuals together, right, Cheryl? I can see it in your head right now.
Well, and I'll tell you, Dr. Howard, I have a light bulb moment. I realized I have a book. I mean, Digital Dialogue says we have a whole workbook, but we're not selling it. Sharina, we need to sell this book. Okay.
Yes.
Really good. We have such good content. That's the other thing. We have such good content that people would love to read and do on their own time.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think the combination of a book and a workbook could be a way to double the income as well.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I felt, not that I felt a fear of missing out, not that I felt jealous, because as a Christian, we don't get jealous, but I had referred Dr. Larthenia to one of my good friends. And I got her book and I was like looking through the book. I was like, she has QR codes and she has videos. And I was like, I called Dr. Larthenia. I was like, we are working on our next book now. But things have advanced so much that, you can click on and you can hear me talking. That's going to be the next book.
Yeah, I'm working on the next book with Dr. Larthenia Howard as well, because my idea is to have a series of protocol and etiquette books. So the first one was all about the art of dining. The next one, I'm going to collaborate with my husband, Dennis R. Robertson, and it'll be about tips and toasts. So we're having a lot of fun, he and I, in writing this book and collaborating.
I think Dr. Cheryl may have. Oh, are you still there, Dr. Cheryl? There you are. So it'll be about tips about, what was that now?
Tips and toast. Ooh. So it's a book that will help you to understand how to tip, who to tip, how much to tip. A lot of people don't know, and that's a real protocol issue. And also we'll be writing about toast, because toast are so important. I think it's totally underrated. And so now we'll help you to come up with different toasts for different occasions. So before you go to an event or you go to dinner or you go to a client entertainment opportunity, you'll look through our book and say, wow, that's the perfect toast for this occasion.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. And listen, you know, I have a restaurant in Louisville, Kentucky. When you get the tip portion done, we're going to put them on every table.
Wow, that's a great marketing strategy. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. There are a lot of servers and bartenders and restaurant owners that are
need
here for that book. You hear
yes,
me?
Yes.
Man. Well, clearly, Dr. Hart, clearly you've got a proven methodology. Listen, if you talk about walking billboards, these women believe in your format. They believe in the way in which you approach this. Are there some tips that you can share with those that are on here? Let's say they're not at a stage where they may be able to afford to engage you. Any sort of tips until they're ready to make sure that they're moving towards their dream of publishing their book?
Yeah. So whatever their expertise or their topic is that they are interested in writing about, then just start collecting what I call, artifacts, information, right? So whether it be past articles or articles that they've either written or something that someone else has written, look and see, collect all the things that you've written. Most people have written, I can't tell you how many books, they just haven't formally compiled them together in a book, right? So we have scribble notes. Most of us have scribble notes. We have notepads. We have all these ideas, that we're walking around with. And a lot of times we're scribbling on different pieces of paper. So that's one thing, to just start gathering what you have. And then if you, depending on how much you have, especially, like I said, if it's in a particular field of expertise, then you can start dividing that into categories, looking at how can I categorize this? Do I have enough pals or enough categories to write one book? Or do I have enough to where I can divide them into more than one book? So just start looking around you, for what you might already have. Yeah.
I want to add to that, because she's being extremely bashful about this. Like, this is a sister that has the algorithm, and she can tell you exactly when you should publish, when you should let your book out there. She'll say, talk to your network and make sure everybody buys the book at 3:30 on Thursday. And using her algorithm, my book went to a #1 bestseller in its category.
That's right. Mine too.
And I don't want to underrate the time that she took as well. So she sort of moved into my house for a moment, and she just talked to me and made me stay focused. And we did tapes, and then the tape went from audio to written, and then we ruled things out, edited. It is an amazing process, but I just couldn't be more proud about the accomplishment of having written a book. And I can't wait to write the second one.
Man.
Wait a second. I'm feeling a little jealous here because you didn't move into my house. It's fine, because I flew down to West Palm Beach.
Sunny Florida. That's right. So you got the better. You got the better deal.
And I'm out on the sand on the beach running. So we stayed together, I think, about 3-4 days, and it was intense, but we knocked out a huge part of the book. So she has different styles, of course, now with COVID, that, she will be in contact with you and work very closely. So, I mean, I feel like we're doing a little commercial because, I know. Next up, you have Sharina and Tawana, and looks like Aaron, too.
Look, okay, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And I hope, my hope is that there are so many that are watching that make the move and say, it's time, especially if it is becoming a competitive advantage, especially if the business card will no longer do, right? So I really am, I'm sitting in this chair, and as much as I have been resisting it, I am really coming to the realization that I don't really have a choice anymore. If I want to stay in the game, I got to get this book out, and more than one. Clearly, you're already working on tip and toe. So again, I want this week's dialogue series to really resonate. I want some powerful things to come out of it for those that are viewing. Can you just walk people through what your experience was? You made the decision, right? Because that's really half the battle. For me, I was writing, and then I got to the point where I was like, I think I want a ghostwriter because I don't want to do this. And then I will never forget, actually, I reached out to several people, and they listened, and they said, I can't, no, you need to do this. Yeah. You need to write this. You need to finish this. I mean, I tried all the things. And so finally, one day while reading chapter 1 to some of my friends on Zoom, and they were like, I hung on to every word. And I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read this in my voice. So we're launching, the book is called Race to Privilege, and we launch in a few weeks. And I see some of our team on here, Alonzo and Nicole, that have been in the background with this heavy lift, making it happen. But walk the viewers through, like, you made the decision, half the battle. And then what happened?
Well, for me as a doctor, it was for me to take the time and put it in my schedule, because that's one of the things that, especially, encouraging people to be healthy. Everyone's like, I don't have time for this, but you have time for what you consider to be important. And part of what I wanted to do was to share what I knew. And I just set it up such that I exercised when I needed to. I saw patients when I needed to, but I also needed to work on my third baby, the book. Because I am married, I do have twin boys. So it's not an easy thing to juggle. And I think around that time, my mother also had a stroke. So whatever is important, that it needs to be done. So I had to have a strict schedule. Dr. Larthenia was checking in. She gave me set deadlines. And no matter what, I knew I had to reach those deadlines, because she was holding me accountable, just like I hold my patients accountable about, because this is a book. It's a short book, but it's full of juicy content in 6 chapters. And through talking to Dr. Larthenia, we even came up what we call a doctor's checklist. And that is where at the end of each chapter, I ask you questions about what you learned or what are you going to do differently based on your knowledge. And since I like to exercise and, run marathons, we made it like a running theme. Yeah. So, it's really, how dedicated are you going to be? We all talk a lot, but we need to also put things into action. And that's what I'm about.
Amen.
Yeah. And I think that was it, Dr. Cheryl.
No, please, Dr. Larthenia.
Yeah. So, Dr. Reed, I think you hit on a point there, because it really is about the planning process, right? So once you've made that decision, then how are you, what's the next step in terms of how do you plan it out? So scheduling that time into the calendar and breaking your project down, right? So chunking it. You heard the phrase like, how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. It's the same thing with the book. You chunk it, you decide, what am I going to do and when am I going to do it, right? And so once you determine that, and then you start getting all your pieces together, what pieces that you need in order to write the book, depending on the type of book that you're writing, then I say the next important thing is you setting those appointments, just like Dr. Michelle said, having those set appointments in your calendar, just like you would a doctor's appointment, dentist appointment, or what have you. Have that time in your calendar, and that's what you do. Even if you think you don't have anything to write, if that's your appointment to write, you sit there until something comes. You write about the color on the wall. You write about the bird that's flying in the tree that just passed the rooftop or whatever it takes. You just get into writing. The other important thing there is to know your environment. Like what environment is more conducive to you writing and being creative. That's so important. And I think a lot of authors, they skip that step, right? They just want to sit somewhere and write. No, you need the right environment. What gets your juices going? What energizes you? What motivates you? I learned years ago that the sound of traffic, for some crazy reason, probably because of the way I grew up, just invigorates me. And so when I write, I open my glass sliding door at 4:00 in the morning or 4:30, what time I'm up writing, and I'll just crack it just so I can hear the traffic, because it energizes me. The other thing that motivates me is the smell of French vanilla coffee. So I'll put on a pot of French vanilla coffee. Don't even drink the stuff, but I buy it because it energizes me. It gets me creative. It gets my creative juices going. So anyway, that's important. Those are next important steps that you would take once you get that idea to kind of set yourself up.
The thing for me was I already do training in this area. So I have gobs of PowerPoint presentations that I use when I do my workshops and my programs. So I naturally already had a resource. I already had something that all I had to do is flip it and make it a book. I'd like to also mention how important research was. So I spent a lot of time in bookstores just looking through other books to see how other people were treating the topic that I wanted to write about, because I didn't want my book to be like everyone else's. So I was looking for ways to stand out and to be distinguished, from other. And I never knew there were so many dining skills, but I'm really proud of the one dining skills book. So I'm proud of the one that I wrote. I don't know it would have been the book I ended up with had I not read all of the other dining skills books that were on the shelf. So there was a lot to be said for that. But mostly, you really do have what you need probably already in your library or in one of those binders or in your notes. So
yeah. And Cheryl, an important piece on that in terms of like going and doing that research is look for things that, like you said, what other people are writing, but look at that table of contents for what people are not saying as well. Yeah. So you're looking for the missing pieces, right? You're looking for what's unique. What can I find that people aren't talking about? Or if they're talking about it, they're not talking about it in the way that I'm talking about it. Right. And when you're looking through that table of contents, that's going to help give you some ideas. So yeah, that's one of the activities that we do with our authors is to do that. We call it our field trip to the bookstore. Yeah.
Yeah, that benefited me greatly.
Yeah. So, I think one of the things also that I want to touch on, we've seen some people rush to publish their book, and in rushing, there's like tons of grammatical issues, so on and so forth. What are some words of wisdom or resources that you can give to make sure that that doesn't happen? How do they avoid that?
Yeah, so one of the things that I teach authors is on your computer, if you're using at least the HP, on the ribbon of the top portion, when you go into a Word doc, there is a reader. There's a dictator up there that you have on your computer, and you also have I think it's in the review. If you click on the review or the edit tab, and so when you use that, it will actually read your document to you. And so if you put your cursor at the front of your document, you turn that feature on and just listen to, because it's going to read every word that's on that document, and you listen for errors, because sometimes we can hear things and catch them a lot easier than it is with us writing, because we're typing so quickly. So that's one of the suggestions I have. And then of course there's a ton of apps, online apps that you can use now, web based services that you can use, that you can plot your documents right into, Grammarly and, some of these others that are out there that are really good. They're excellent. And people just don't, I find that a lot of people don't take advantage of services like they're not expensive at all. And you plop your document right into there. And of course, that's going to give you a lot of feedback, a lot of great feedback when it comes to line editing for your book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably been one of the biggest kind of glaring, things that I've seen, or some of the chatter that I've heard when someone say, oh, they published a book, but gosh, trying to get through it and it's on Amazon, but no.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is really, really, really great feedback. I want to dive a little bit into a little bit more about what your books are about. And I know, Dr. Michelle, you mentioned that there's some really juicy stuff in your book. Of those that are tuning in with us today, why do they want to pick your book up?
Well, as a doctor, you can see my brand is Fit Doc. So it's about you being fit in all aspects of your life, mentally, physically, spiritually, and sexually. And everyone was always asking me when they would come into the office, how do you do everything that you do? And I mean, I actually was pregnant. My boys will be 17 in April. So when I became pregnant, I gained probably about 60 pounds, and it was all belly. And a couple of years later, I started back to running more. I mean, I always loved to ride bike. So I basically went back to my pre-pregnancy state and probably even lost more weight because I started running marathons and half marathons and 5Ks. And with that, patients saw the transition, because keep in mind, my practice is over 19 years. And they saw the transition and they're like, how do you still do everything that you do? Because you're married, we know you have kids, and you have the practice. And that's when I started thinking about it and talking to Dr. Larthenia. That's how we came up with the book. And we call it The Fit Doc's Guide to Real Life, Real Fitness, Real Health, where I talk about why do you exercise? Why do you not exercise? What do you feel is your benefit if you do exercise?
Mm-hmm.
And let's get started exercising. Let's get started eating right. So it's 6 chapters, but during each chapter, we talk about it. One chapter is called What's in Your Fuel Belt? Because when I run, sometimes I have a fuel belt or a backpack where it'll have my nutrition in it, or it'll have some type of liquid that I need, like with electrolytes. So it talks about what are the healthy food choices that you should have. And it doesn't give away everything, because if I did, it would have been a lot bigger. But these are little bites, or maybe bacon bits. You don't get the whole slab of bacon. You just get little tiny bits that make you want more. And so that's why people are saying, okay, when is the next one coming out? Because we want more, because you survived COVID. How did you survive COVID when that was March of 2020, when you had it, with so many other people that were Black and brown that were dying? Mm-hmm. So it's giving them what they need when they need it, and still benefiting me because I am sharing my story and, of course, increasing sales.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, that story alone sold me. And you've been on before, but today I'm like sold. On top of, now I feel like I got to write a book. I got to lose the belly. I got to lose some weight. Love it. I tell people all the time, this is therapy for me. They just don't even understand. So yeah, right. Cheryl, tell us about what's in yours. Like, what's the scoop?
Yeah. So my book, the title is Rules of Engagement: How to Win at Dining with Clients and Other Important People. And of course, everybody's important. So it's really a guide to help you understand how to entertain guests over a meal. All those little nuances that help you to understand how important your brand and your image is when you're dining. And so we do everything from work from the outside in to when should you talk about business when you're entertaining a client. Because when you're dining with a client, it really isn't so much about the business as it is about the relationship. And so it really is about timing for you to understand, okay, now we've warmed up the table and our relationship enough that we can talk about business. We also talk about what to wear, how to sit, who should sit where, how to treat your waiter, what those silent service codes are so you can give cues without saying it out loud, how to choose a great restaurant, how to choose and pair wine with your meal. What should you drink? What should you drink? What should you order? What shouldn't you order? These are all important things when you're dining with a client or other important people. And of course, everybody's important. So I had so much fun writing this.
Love it. Love
and
it.
I'm gonna say, I've been in Cheryl's sessions, and her sessions
are awesome.
You're learning so much information. She makes it fun. And I'll tell you, like this past summer, we were out at a restaurant. Of course, we were outdoors. And at the end, the waitress came over to me and she said, I just have to say thank you because you were so nice and you kept calling me my name. She said, nobody does that anymore. And you don't know how much, like how I appreciate it. And I was like, what would Cheryl do?
I know.
That sounds like a book, Michelle.
What would Cheryl do? I love it. I love it. I love it. And you're so right, Dr. Michelle. I'm constantly, when I'm out, remembering what she said. Remember, Cheryl, I think I called you once and I was like, I was telling somebody else, I said, yeah, I was talking to this etiquette and protocol expert. And she was telling me that when you're late, you're going to show up late to a meeting, especially if you're at a restaurant, you go and check with the concierge, you check with the maitre d', whomever is, over the service at that time, and you have them order a bottle of wine. That check with that guest, let them know who that person is, and let them know that you're running late. But in the meantime, this is what you have waiting for them while they're waiting for me to catch up on time, to get to. And I'm like, oh my goodness, when Cheryl said that to me, I was like, oh yeah, baby, I'm setting myself apart. I got this. And so,
oh Lord, y'all because I know I'll be running behind. I'm thinking about
exactly. And she actually did that once we had a meeting, and I'm like, I felt so special. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then once we had met Cheryl, I was talking with her, and we just started talking about business and got online and I was showing her some stuff about how to, get the online course going and all of that from the book. And I expected nothing because I was just there and, we were just talking and, talking about business and what have you. So I get back home and I left there and I went on another business trip to see another client. And so I was gone for about a week or so. When I got home, there was this lovely box sitting on the table. And I looked at it, it was from Cheryl. I'm like, what is Cheryl sending me? And so I opened up the box. It is the most gorgeous stemware with a note, a personally handwritten note from her, thanking me for the time that I spent with her and sharing my knowledge and information. I didn't expect any of that. I'm just thinking I'm showing up to a girlfriend's house.
You certainly deserved it.
Oh my gosh.
Wait a minute now.
It was amazing. I was taking pictures. You should have seen me. I'm profiling with the stem, sending it to everybody. Like, look what Cheryl sent me. It was awesome.
I think I should maybe write my third book on the art of quid pro quo.
Yes.
A lot of people have forgotten the thing that you have to reward people for favors. And sometimes you don't get it back from where it came. So you just give it back out into the universe. But often you have to remember, if I do you a good turn, you owe me a good turn back.
Yes.
So I think that could be another book as well. All rules of engagement.
Well,
yes.
So if that's the other book, I think the other book is how to fit giving back all in with everything else that you have going on. I mean, one, taking the time, right, to pick up the phone. You're already running late, so clearly, you had some conflict going on. To get the bottle of wine sent to the table, and then having the time to order the stemware and get it shipped out. I mean, that in and of itself is a science, because I'm sitting here thinking about all the people I just want to send thank you cards to.
Yes.
Stemware, honey. Wow. That is impressive.
Yeah, yes. It was amazing. Like I said, the feeling. So now you know who phone call I always answer? Cheryl. Because
I need to send you more stemware then.
I have to make this
might be another piece of this stemware coming.
That Deidre dropped, and I'm assuming this is in Cheryl's book or came from one of you all. And do not stick your pinky out when drinking tea. Okay, that's true. Can you please elaborate on that? Girl.
Oh my goodness!
Help me understand the etiquette with the pinky.
The history of the pinky thing is pedestrians, when they ate, would always use 2 fingers instead of 3. And so instead of it being a first class, luxurious thing, it really was a low class demonstration of your lack of knowledge of protocol and etiquette.
Interesting.
So it's similar to, a lot of people want to go to high tea, and they think high tea is a higher level of tea. And so, but it's not, because really it's low tea, because you're eating from a low table. Ladies who lunched, and in the 1700s, they would sit down in beautiful chairs. They didn't work. So they're sitting in their parlors and they're serving each other tea to hold them over until dinner. High tea was meant for the working class people, because they stood up to eat dinner, and it was a hearty tea. And when they got off work, that's what they did. They had high tea. So it's funny how these things get twisted, but you need a protocol etiquette expert to sort of help you with these nuances.
I see.
Sure.
I see. Okay, so we've talked about just getting there. We've talked about collecting information, right? We've talked about how you can generate money. We've talked about tips on how you can ensure you don't have grammatical issues in your book, using some of the tools, even just in your word processor on your machine. Let's talk about actually getting the book out there, right? Because you can publish all you want, right? And I know you all mentioned that, she's been great, even getting you to the point where the algorithm on when to post. But the reality of it all is that just because you write a book doesn't mean it's going to be picked up, doesn't mean it's going to sell. So what are some of the things that you had to find yourself doing between friends and family and conferences? How did you get the book circulated?
Well, I was going to say, thank God for social media. So it was really putting it out on social media, and that's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, encouraging people to share it. I also created teams of people.